Good morning, everybody, and welcome. So good to see so many wonderful faces. Some are older in terms of I know you already, and some are newer in terms of I haven't seen you before. So welcome to everybody that's here right now. We're just on the cusp of finishing up our weekend Sesshin, which is an extended meditation retreat. We started Friday afternoon, and we're ending pretty much after this Dharma talk. It's been a wonderful, wonderful weekend. I feel very blessed. My name is Daishin, or my given name is Eric. My last name is McCabe. I'm the interim head priest here, and I'm originally, I came from Ames, Iowa, and I come here once a month to offer Dharma talks and to be with you guys. And I'm originally from the East Coast, originally from Maryland. That's where I grew up. And I went to school in Pennsylvania and studied Zen Buddhism, lived in a Zen temple for about 15 years in central Pennsylvania, amidst corn and soy fields, similar to where I am right now. I was a competitive swimmer, and then I met an amazing dancer who turned into a Zen Buddhist priest. And I was so entranced by her comportment, the way she held her physical body when she sat down. I was like, wow, I don't know what she's doing, but I want to be able to do that too. And that led me to where I am today, in part, of course. I say there's not one thing that has led me to where I am today, but myriad factors. But that's one of the pinnacle points for myself, and taking on this path and seeing, wow, I feel better just sitting next to my teacher. I feel better. That's pretty good medicine. You don't have to take anything in. You just sit down next to somebody who's sat down for a long time. You feel better. What's going on there? It's like osmosis. Something's taking place. And so I've made this my life commitment to be able to do the same, really, for others. That's what I want to do. That's really what I want to do. I want to do that for you all. I want you all to have that experience too, of just being able to sit down and feeling better without doing any drugs or drinking or other things. Just like, well, sitting down here, this is pretty good. Right? So what is on your mind today? What would you all like to talk about? I have plenty to say, but yeah, go ahead, yeah.
Daishin, this being the first time that we're at this temple, coming from a temple in Michigan that is not so Zen, I was struck by the form. And I wonder if you could say a few words on form and its importance in Soto Zen. What I can take away other than how to do everything. There's this way how to do everything, and why that is, and how it's important.
Oh, right, yeah. So Jeremy has a question about form, and he comes from Michigan, from Shinkyu, the same place as Shinkyu, yes. And Nikki, right? You all both came from the Michigan, what is it?
It's Grand Rapids.
Grand Rapids Zen Center. And you're noticing some differences between there and here, and maybe more formality here, would you say? That's interesting, because I don't notice the form. I I know there are forms, yeah, there's forms that we do. And you're asking why, what is this? Why are there differences? Why are there these forms? Yeah. Well, first let's just say that I think a lot of times people come to a Zen center, and if they come for the first time, they're really super self-conscious. I know I was, and want to be able to do everything right and respectfully. And as and I know that if you get told something to do a certain way, maybe you'd been doing it differently, and you might feel, oh my gosh, did I offend somebody? But that's not the intention behind the forms, just say that. Rather, it's the forms are there as a means to cultivate our attention. So we have, actually, we just have, what we do here is just really the minimal forms of Soto Zen. But the real intention of these forms, is to cultivate mindfulness and beginner's mind. That wherever we're going, we have that sense of learning. Oh, this is how you do something. Not because knowing that will somehow give you an answer to a philosophical question, but in knowing that, you know where to place your mind. And that in itself can bring great relief, knowing where to place your mind. And the same thing with Zazen, when we're doing seated meditation. That's what got me with my teacher, is she taught me where to I could put my mind on certain things. And most of us, we get distracted, right? Our world is full of distractions, even more so today than 100 years ago, or 500 years ago, or 1,000 years ago, when Dogen introduced some of these forms 1,000 years ago. Our world is full of distractions, and then even more so now, these forms are there to give us some direction. Where can you, not in a forced way, but to give you some options. You could remain distracted if you wanted to. That's an option. Nobody wants to make that, but you could do that. But here's another option. How about sitting upright? How about lowering your eyes but keeping them open? All right, that's a form. How about placing your palms together? And we say in the Soto school of Zen, a fist distance away from the bridge of your nose. Right? So there's like that. So it gives the mind a place to go. It gives the body a place to go and to rest. That's what it's about. So the forms, my understanding is those forms give us an opportunity to rest our mind. We don't have to come up with something else to rest our mind. We don't have to think a special thought. We don't need to have a special insight even, right? There's some schools of Buddhism like Vipassana, insight meditation, like you sit and then you get an insight about the nature of reality. But Soto Zen doesn't dismiss that approach, but it takes a little different approach. It's just saying that the form gives you an opportunity to place your mind here. This is where we can rest our mind. And it's not through a sitting practice that you then attain something. That's kind of a usual way of thinking, that we sit and meditate, and then that process of meditation is going to get us to X, Y, or Z. Rather, the sitting is the culmination of the practice. The form, this gasho, that's the culmination. This is where the Buddha is. This is where the insight is. And when you start to look more deeply into these forms, then you can see that for yourself too. When you practice them within the context of the Sangha, within the context of the teacher, then you start to experience this through our physical body. It's a body practice, not just a mental, like I'm going to grab some kind of understanding with my mind, and then I got something. That's a disembodied kind of practice. So Soto Zen is really, it puts forth the importance of the body, this physical red lump of flesh, call it, the red lump of flesh. We all are sitting on, we are lumps of red flesh. Doesn't that sound like it? It's like a visceral, and we're just sitting on a cushion. Our lump of red flesh is sitting on the cushion in all different shapes and sizes. That's it. Yeah. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to say? Yeah.
Can you talk about the role of love in our practice?
Wow. Oh man, that's a good one. Oh, where does love come in? So let's clarify first of all, what do we mean by love? How would you define that?
I would say force that moves.
The force that moves. So if love is defined as a force that moves, in what direction? In all directions, yeah. A force that moves in all directions. Wow. Well, what's been on my mind, I don't know if this answers this question about love or not, but I'll do my best. We really are here for each other, and that's what the Sangha in Buddhism is. And we talk about the three treasures. Buddha is a teacher. Dharma is the nature of reality, impermanence, for example. Things are constantly, continually changing. And then how do we meet that? How do we lessen suffering or end it completely? So Buddha offers all kinds of practices to help us deal with suffering. That in itself, I think, is love, right there, right? When there is suffering, you want to get out of it. When we're suffering, there's nothing, there's nothing else that when we're in full-blown suffering, think labor, right? Think child labor. No, think of a woman in labor, right? Full-blown suffering. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it's not, I've not been there. That's my perception of it. And that's full-blown, but you don't have to give childbirth to experience suffering in a profound way, but that's one way of it. And when we're there, we're not looking for an intellectual understanding of life. We're not looking for a philosophy. We're looking for something to end the suffering. That's what the Buddha taught, right? He wanted to teach, first of all, that there is suffering, and then second, that there's got to be an end to that suffering. That's what he wasn't concerned about philosophy. He was concerned about how do we end our pain. And as long as one of us is suffering, then all of us are suffering to some degree. That was his view. So his main intent, I think, is motivated. The whole practice is motivated by love. That as long as the world is suffering, we've got to do something. To me, that's love. That's another way of talking about love. And maybe we can't individually end everybody's suffering, although that's the vow of the Bodhisattva, is to end every single being's suffering. It's crazy kind of thinking. But that's where our mind, that's such a motivational vow. You can't do it, you can't accomplish it, and yet you say it. So we're like the biggest hypocrites there are. I'm going to end all suffering. I'm going to do it. I don't know when, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to at least point myself in that direction. All right, so, but we can work on the suffering that's in our immediate vicinity, I think more adeptly. There's going to be suffering on the other side of the world that here's the thing about it's so strange about our time, unprecedented time that we live in, because of the vast ability to communicate. We are inundated like no other culture in history with tremendous amount of knowledge and information from around the globe simultaneously. Think about previous societies before there was an internet, before there was a TV, before there were phones. I don't just mean the iPhones, but the telephone. Before there was all of that, we didn't know. I mean, we stayed fairly local in our communities, and suffering was much more manageable. And that's the context in which Buddhism and other religions were born. They were born in this, it's a much smaller context, where suffering was actually manageable. You saw that your neighbor was suffering, whatever they needed. Okay, well, I'll get them X, Y, or Z. I'll get them food or medicine. That's the basic things that food, clothing, and medicine. Those are the three things that every one of us needs to some degree. Food, clothing or shelter, and medicine. What else do we need? A new car. We'd like that too. But basically, those three things, and that's what the Buddha kind of focused on for his monastic students, but also for the lay students that weren't doing that. So just focus on those three things. And those are manageable, right? We can acquire those things much more easily. And if we do so within the local community, we can, that's manageable. When we start thinking about the suffering that's on the other side of the world, or even in another state, it becomes a little more difficult to manage psychologically, because again, 100 years ago, we didn't live in that. We didn't live in such with so much ability to acquire knowledge, acquire information. So that's dysregulating for us. And I see Zazen, or this practice, whether it's the forms that we do, whether it's a sitting meditation, it's a way to get regulated. It's a way to regulate our emotional state that can easily get disrupted nowadays. More easily, I don't know, I didn't live 100 years ago, but I imagine we get dysregulated very easily in today's world. And I wonder if it was like that 500 years ago, when everybody talked to everybody. You can go out to your neighbor and they know your name. We can't assume that today. Like, you go next door, do you know your next door neighbor's name? Right, we don't necessarily know their names. Like, even on this block that we live on, the Zen Center lives on, I know Pam next door, but I don't know anybody at the church. I don't know anybody across the street. And in my own neighborhood in Ames, I know the person across the street, and I know some of the people in the rental apartment, and then there's a guy next door I kind of say hello sometimes to, and there's another one. So I know some of the people, but you go beyond, my point is, you go beyond much further than that, and we start to, things break down. And so we know people further away better than we know the people right here. That creates an interesting context in which to live and to practice. So getting to that question of love. I think that's the most loving thing that the Buddha offers is ways out of suffering. And one of the ways that we suffer in modern times is this dislocation or the distance that we have between the people in our local communities. Our local community is very fragmented, and that's kind of suffering. So I feel like that's something that we can't address that here, but we need to regulate ourselves because that's where we traditionally got it. You could go next door and see your neighbor, they were the same, you go to the same church, you had the same way of thinking generally, and everybody knew what everybody needed to a certain extent. And now we don't know that. We don't know what's happening but we can assume that there's some degree of distance or not distance, but alienation. I think that's a pervasive experience that we all have, this alienation from our local place. So Zazen then, or even just getting together, we have opportunities every moment now. To me, this is the solution. We have opportunities every moment to regulate each other. By that I mean, we sit down next to each other and we feel better because we're in close proximity. There's another body, another lump of red flesh next to us, and my lump of red flesh is here, and it's just something magical happens in that space, in this space. Bunch of lumps sitting down. And we don't do, I mean, that's the magic of it, right? So I don't know if that helps, but I feel like, Dogen, this is, I think knowing is the problem. By knowing, I mean information, the ability to know a lot of stuff at once we're addicted to it, and yet at the same time, does it actually help? Sometimes it does, but sometimes there's information that we get that is so overwhelming because we can't do very much about it in the immediacy of the moment like we could. But Dogen also talks about this, as the Zen, some of the Zen stories talk about this, the problem of knowing. There's a koan, in fact, called "Knowing is not the way." Knowing is not the way, and it's by that knowledge. Acquiring more knowledge is not the way. So a lot of times people come to, come to a meditation center like here, Nebraska Zen Center, come with some previous knowledge, and that's fine. That's what we're going to do. We're going to read up books. We might practice some meditation on our own, or maybe with a couple of people, and so we come with some knowing of what to do. We want to prepare ourselves. And you got to start somewhere. Everybody has to start somewhere. But then that knowing actually gets in the way of what we need and looking for. What are we looking for? That it's okay not to know. It's okay not to know. You don't need to know. You don't need to have Buddhism figured out. You don't need to have yourself figured out. I found this book last night called "Enlightenment is an Accident." It's by Tim Burkett. So that's Jikan's teacher's teacher. And I came across some helpful things in here that I thought I'd share. He quotes Meister Eckhart, the Christian mystic, here, saying, "A human being has so many skins inside, covering the depths of the heart." Here it is. "We know so many things. Well, this was written probably a couple hundred years ago. When was Meister Eckhart alive? Wasn't this century, right? We know so many things, but we don't know ourselves. Why 30 or 40 skins or hides as thick and hard as an ox's or bear's cover the soul? Go into your own ground and learn to know yourself there. But there's something, the knowledge that we take in, we acquire mainly through different forms of education, is those hardening skins. They cover the heart. And our practice, the way I understand it, is to develop that courage, that confidence to relinquish these knowings. Or as Shunryu Suzuki, one of the early pioneers to Western Buddhists, says, beginner's mind. In the expert's mind, there are few possibilities, but in the beginner's mind, there are many. So that's what we want to bring to this moment now, is beginner's mind. What is this? Right? Who am I? We have a lot of ideas about what the world is and what's happening in the world. We get our news is another source of information, and that colors our view of our world. And Zen is just asking us to question even that. It's saying this is a partial view. It's not complete. And suffering develops and is crystallized when we take one view as the whole view. Or Dogen says somewhere, it's like looking at one corner of the sky through a bamboo pole and taking that one little corner of the sky as the entirety of the universe. We're only just getting a little tiny sliver of the universe, and we're missing a whole bunch of other stuff. So that's that surround sound view. We want to have eyes in the back of our heads coming out the side. That's what, if you see some images of Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva of compassion, she has eyes, she has 11 heads, and eyes that look in all directions. Right? That's the body we want to acquire. That's our body, actually, that's our body. If we see ourselves as not separate, right? You're my body. Your body is my body. So I don't have to have all the answers. We collectively, all of our eyes are important. Not just human eyes too, the animal eyes are important. The plant eyes, plants have eyes. It's funny to say that. They have sense organs, right? Everything senses. And so just to be humble around that sentience, the ability to sense things. We all have feeling, right? We have organs that feel. The hands touch, and I can feel this wood. The eyes touch the eye object, and I can see forms. But everything does that too. Plants also feel their way to the light. They feel the warmth. They know where the light is. Their cells take in the energy from the sun, photosynthesis, right? They're photosynthesizing, and they're doing their thing. Everything has got such sentience, such feeling. Even rocks feel, see, hear, even a rock. Right? We make music out of rocks, don't we? I get a little.
Rock and roll.
Couldn't have said it better. Rock and roll, baby, rock and roll. We make music. I mean, think about that. The stuff that rocks make. I mean, we shape rocks into all kinds of things. There's rock elements in this screen. So don't tell me rocks don't make sound. They don't hear. They don't speak. Everything's speaking, but we're not always sensitized to it. So that's what Zazen does: is opens the sense gates more, so we can see it. The Lotus Sutra, this is just I don't know what to tell you about this one. It's amazing. I wanted to, when I was thinking about this, what am I going to do for this particular talk? And my impulse was, I've got to study something. There's something I have to learn. There's something I have to know. And then this other side of my mind said, you don't know anything. Right? You're not gonna save yourself by knowledge with this group. This group's gonna eat you up if you don't, if you think you know something. But there's this chapter. These are just thoughts that have been going through my mind the past couple of weeks that I found really helpful for the situation that we're in. This self-regulation that I've been talking about. We regulate each other. And it really starts with a self, but we really can experience this in a very profound way in our family life. With our spouses, with our children, with our parents, when we're with them. That's the original way we regulate it. If you study psychology, I'm not an expert at psychology, maybe some of you know more about this than I do, but there's the way that a child learns to regulate its emotions is by watching the parent do that. And they see how the parent reacts to things. And if the parent gets upset and anxious, then the child gets upset and anxious because that's what we've taught it to do. And if something bad happens and the parent is calm and chill about it, then the child knows, okay, well, there's anxiety, but okay, it's not a big deal. And they're able to regulate by watching how the adult responds. And so that's why I say we have so many opportunities just in our home life for noticing how we can have an effect, a really positive effect on our life by becoming cognizant and mindful of our role within the nuclear family for regulation of emotion. And I admit, I'm learning this myself. My son is one of my best teachers here. He's teaching me how to do it. I don't mean he's saying, Dad, this is how you regulate. He's only 8 years old, but he, I find sometimes, I love him to death, and there's things that, as you know, and anybody who lives in a nuclear family, there's always issues that come up, and we have our desires for comfort. And there's certain habits that we do to we have habits in what gets us to those comforts. And we want to preserve ourselves to a large degree. And this is part of I would suggest, what I'm noticing in my own nuclear family, that's part of my problem, is that I'm living in mindless habituation, right? The way that I do things is just by habit, and I'm not paying attention to what's actually going on and needed in the moment. And so more recently, I've been noticing how my own mental and emotional and physical state and body language affects how my son and my spouse are. And if I bring mindful attention to it, regulating myself, something shifts in that environment. And what I noticed too, like one of the things that came forward for me is that my son wants to know that I'll be happy regardless of the way that he feels. My son, he wants to know, he hasn't said this, but I suspect, he wants to know that I'm okay even if he's upset. And I say that because up until more recently, I get upset when he's upset. And what does that mean? I haven't regulated that. He's looking to me to learn how to regulate his own emotional state. And if I'm getting upset when he's upset, he's learning how to be upset and not how to, I am teaching him. I'm teaching him how to maintain being upset. But we can down-regulate ourselves when we notice somebody in our family, could be a spouse, it could be a friend, it could be a coworker. When they are upset, it could be directly upset to us, to me. When they are upset, I can learn to regulate myself in that moment and still maintain some degree of peace there. Maybe I need to apologize. We can't put ourselves above being able to apologize. That's so important, to be able to apologize, even if you know you're not wrong. And my teacher said it's calling the cow purple. You got to be willing in the Zen practice to call the cow purple. You know the cow is not purple, but you got to say, yes, the cow is purple. And in the same way, you got to be able to apologize, even if it's not your fault. That's what we do. That's our practice. That's going to change the world right there. Take somebody else's responsibility. Nobody wants to hear that. Take responsibility for somebody else's mistake. Man, that's what's going to change things. I really think that. Somebody else made a mistake, what do? You stupid, XYZ, right? It doesn't solve anything. In the immediacy of the moment, in the locality, when somebody's upset, even if it's not rational, you can approach them and say, I'm so sorry I did that. And there's going to be such a change in that person. I had this experience just the other day. We had a painter, my wife wanted to get the windows cut and painted. So we had a painter come and he brought a big machine that went on the grass so he could get up real high to get the windows painted. But the machine went on the neighbor's lawn. And he had to do more painting, but it was the end of the day, so he left the machine there, partially on the neighbor's lawn. I was like, I don't know how this is going to go over, but I didn't really think it was going to be a big deal, because those machines, they go on there all the time. They might take the grass down, but after a few days, it's back to normal. And it hadn't rained or anything recently, so it was all right. But the neighbor came home, he saw the machine there, and he started cussing and everything. And I was sitting on the porch with my daughter of 10 months, of a year plus months old, listening to him cursing the painter and indirectly me for the machine being on his property. And I had my own thoughts about that going through my head and thinking, oh, he just doesn't understand. And I thought, no, wait a minute. It's not about this machine. For whatever reason, he's having a really bad day. And so this is the mindfulness practice coming in. It's kicking in. I had to say I'm sorry to my teacher myriad of times, even for things that I didn't think were worth apologizing for. That was my practice for 15 years. I'm sorry. And it's great practice, really good practice, you know? And so here's my teacher right next door. He's cursing. So I phoned my wife and said, he's really upset. I think we need to call the painter, or let the painter know at least what's going on. And she said, well, he's not coming back. And I said, okay, well, all right. And then I finally decided, you know what, I'm just going to have to go over there, bite the bullet, and apologize. And my father, I was thinking of my father here too. My mother, she is often very straightforward. She's a New Yorker. She's from Brooklyn, and she'll tell you exactly how she feels, even if you don't want to hear it. And she oftentimes puts her foot in her mouth doing that, and she'll offend people. And sometimes she doesn't care if she offends you, but sometimes it has really bad ripple effects. In the past it has. And so my father would tell her, my mother's name is Prudy, and he would call her Prue for short. So he said at the dinner table once, he said, "Eat crow, Prue." Eat crow. That was his way of saying, you gotta apologize. Eat crow. Nobody wants to eat a crow. It's what we gotta do, though. That's what we gotta do sometimes. Not always. But again, my teacher would say, if you want to get up there, you gotta go down there. You gotta bow. You gotta put your head down to the ground. Right? That's where we gotta put our head down. Just put it down to the ground. A sincere bow. And that's how we get, that's what Zen is, right? You can't have up without down. If you want to get up there, you got to go down here. Right? That's the way it works. So like a drug trip is you go up there without going down there. Eventually you go down, you do it in reverse. You go up first and then you go down. But Zen says, pay now, fly later. Right? You make the payment now. You don't wait till later to pay. You pay now, and then you can fly. So the Lotus Sutra. Talking about, this is a chapter called Expedient Means. And it's the, Dogen makes a whole chapter of one of his fascicles is on one phrase in this Expedient Means chapter. Expedient means that there are many ways to deal with a situation. And it depends on the person. It depends on the situation. It's context dependent. What works for one person in healing a relationship may not work for the other person. So we have to have skillful means. What worked for us one time for illness may not work for us the next time. So we need to have, there's a variety. It's speaking to the need for diversity in everything, in every dimension. We need to pull on diverse ways of thinking and being. There's not one way. That's the crux of the chapter. But there's this one section right in the beginning. Buddha says, he's talking with the most wise of all of his disciples, Shariputra. You heard his name, Shariputra, right? In the Heart Sutra. Listen, Shariputra, right? Buddha says, but stop, Shariputra. I will say no more. Why? Because what the Buddha has achieved is the rarest and most difficult to understand law, or Dharma. The true entity of all phenomena, here it is, can only be understood and shared between Buddhas. Right? The true entity of all phenomena, of everything, right, can only be understood and shared between Buddhas. So prior to this, the Buddha's going on and on about all the things that, Shariputra is saying, at that time, the Buddha calmly arose from his seat, from his samadhi, from his deep concentration, addressed Shariputra saying, the wisdom of the Buddhas is infinitely profound and immeasurable. Infinitely profound and immeasurable. The door to this wisdom is difficult to understand and difficult to enter. Not one of the voice hearers or pratika Buddhas, these are different kinds of practitioners, is able to comprehend it. Dogen echoes this in his fascicle. It's called Only a Buddha with a Buddha. So it's echoing the Lotus Sutra. Only the Buddha with the Buddha. And the very first line is, the Buddha Dharma is not to be known by humans. So we go back to this idea that we come to a Zen center and we feel like we should know something. That knowledge is going to be the answer to our problems, knowing. And the Lotus Sutra, Buddhism, Zen, is all one on this. We are not going to achieve what we're looking for through knowing, through knowledge, through information. That's not what is going to gain us access to the mind of the Buddha. Only the Buddha together with the Buddha. Only the Buddha together with the Buddha. Well, if you start seeing people as the Buddha, and you start seeing yourself as the Buddha, we have some hope, right? That's what Dogen wants us to do. Only a Buddha together with a Buddha. Not a human being. No. The human being, what's the hallmark of the human being is that we feel like we need to know. That's our hallmark, that we think that through knowledge we're going to gain emancipation. And it's not through that knowledge, according to Buddha. It's through the relationship with the Buddha that we attain emancipation. What does that relationship look like? It's so many different things. But in the context of a Zen center, it's the Jisha role. The Jisha offers the incense at the right time. It's the cook's role. The cook is serving the community. It's the smile when you greet somebody at the door. Welcome. I'm so glad to see you. We regulate each other in that smile. Right? That smile is where the Dharma was first transmitted to the Buddha's disciple, Mahakāssapa. It wasn't through words, it was through a smile. Only a Buddha together with a Buddha. And when you enter that role of the attendant, of the teacher, it's a humble position because you're serving somebody, but that's the doorway to the Buddha, to your own Buddha. I remember, and we can do this in so many different ways. I was with my teacher, and she had a Japanese friend with her, and we had other people, so we had two cars for some reason, we were driving. And my teacher was ahead of me, and we were going back to the temple, and I was driving the car behind her. She went first, and we were on the road. It was about a 30-minute drive, but I knew the way back to the temple. I didn't need her. I didn't need to know from her and so I proceeded, once we were on the highway, I proceeded to go this way. And I knew I was doing something wrong the moment I was like, I can go faster than her because I know where to go. I know where I'm going. And so when we got back to the temple, she said, Daishin, don't go ahead of me when you're driving. It's not about knowing. It's about that relationship. I'm there. It's not about me knowing where to go. We do it together. All right? Oh, okay. When we do it together, it goes all right. That's what the great vehicle is. The Maha, great Yana vehicle. We carry all beings together at the same time. We're all on the vehicle together. It's not each man for himself, right? It is all of us together and in relation to each other. So your knowledge of Zazen doesn't help. It's the are you aware of where everybody is, what they're doing, and what your role is in this particular moment. Next month, we're going to have two teachers coming here. And one of the best things, we want to show them that we can be their jisha. It's a wonderful, wonderful practice where you meet the teacher and you take their bags when they come. Bring it to their room. So you don't ask them, can I get, you just, let me take your bags, I'll show you where you're going. And you become the attendant for that person. And you find out what their needs are and you do it. Sometimes you have to ask, but sometimes you just know. We take care of the teacher in that way. And that's how we learn how to take care of each other too. I can be the Jisha for my son. I can be the Jisha for my wife, the attendant. They become the Buddha. And I become the Buddha in serving them. We become Buddhas through service, through that downward motion. The downward motion, eat crow poo, the downward motion. We become Buddhas, right? Only a Buddha together with a Buddha. That's what we want to cultivate here at in the Zen Center, and then take that out in the world. When we do that, we're going to make the world a happy place. But it's challenging, it's hard. And that's where the compassion is needed too. Compassion, first of all, for ourselves, because we don't often do it well. We don't often do it well. So we need a lot of forgiveness, right? We need to draw on the forgiveness there. That's why we need Jesus too, right? Jesus, we need that forgiveness. Buddha also forgives us. And we keep working. We keep working towards that place where we're all together in this as Buddhas and Buddhas. Amen.